everyone, and welcome to tonight's concert. We're going to begin with a tune called Halcyon Hearts. This is a tune that, as the composer writes, is really supposed to be like an ode to just simply loving and caring for each other. You're going to hear at times this piece be incredibly delicate. You're also going to hear it be incredibly strong as well, which again, as the composer just simply talks about this piece wanting to be kind of an ode, I think to one of the greatest things that we can do as humans, which is to simply love and care for each other. He projects that in an incredible kind of show of strength, which is really, really cool. So this is Katahj Copley's Halcyon Hearts. So all year, a theme for not only this group but also Wind Ensemble has been looking at narrative aspects of music, looking at ways that music tells story and using so many different like mechanisms with that. Now we're not just talking about music that is like programmatic or movie music, though we've done some of that this year. And in fact, you'll hear some movie music tonight. But also just looking at ways that composers can kind of advance imagery or advance an idea throughout. And this piece is actually a great example of that. John Philip Sousa had a style of march that he called a pass-by march. And so with that type of composition, he actually wanted to convey to a concert audience what it would be like to actually have that march kind of like pass them by. So it starts soft and get louder and louder and louder and louder, and then it would kind of fade out. So there's a couple of examples of John Philip Sousa and pass-by marches. This is not that at all. But I feel like, in a way, John Mackey, who's a very, very modern composer, is almost paying tribute to that kind of style of writing, because what you're going to hear in Teeth of a Mechanism, whatever that happens to be, is this thing that just keeps getting closer and closer and closer, right? And you kind of hear that, and there's almost a narrative that begins that way. Again, there's no story to this at all, but just the way that John Mackey is using that imagery and advancing an idea that way is actually really cool. So this is Teeth of the Mechanism by John Mackey. Another storytelling device is a fake ending. Lord of the Rings, right? We have a very special presentation, and I'm not really going to say much more than that because you can explain it better than I can. Ladies and gentlemen, Ann Cedarquist.
Good evening. I am here on behalf of the Burning Powers Band Foundation, and tonight I'm here to present the Distinguished Service Award. This award has been given to Marcia Berman, who earned it with all of her contributions to the band program. During the time that her children were in school, they were involved in band. She was a percussionist. That was her minor in college, and she was a dedicated and hardworking volunteer. She was a passionate supporter of our band program and her kids, and she was always there to help out. Some of the things that have her fingerprints are a cookbook that they used as a fundraiser at one point about 20 years ago. If your child is marching in the Sound of Sun Prairie this summer, the registration forms you filled out were created by Marcia a long time ago, and we still use those today because they work wonderfully for that purpose. She cooked, she did whatever needed to be done to support the band program during that time. You can learn more about Marcia and her service to the band program by going to the Burning Powers Band Foundation website. You can also contribute to the foundation that allows us to bestow more scholarships on students. This evening, I'm actually here to present 3 scholarships that are going to go to students who are marching in sound, and the scholarship is called the Marcia Berman Sound of Sun Prairie Scholarship. So quite appropriate that we get to honor her the same evening as we get to present scholarships for the Sound of Sun Prairie. So I've got 3 students off stage. Don't be shy. There we go. So these 3 students, Isabella Huron, Gabriella Huron, and Noah Isaac, all will be receiving the Marcia Berman Sound of Sun Prairie Scholarship. And we would like to thank the Berman family for their generosity over the last, it would be 13 years, the last 13 years, with scholarships for also percussion students to study privately. So, scholarships for Isabella. Did I get it right? Yes, excellent. Thank you guys for applying. Tell your friends to apply. We want to give you that. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for your time.
Our last piece is How to Train Your Dragon. I don't know that it needs much of an introduction, but how can you possibly do a year that kind of leans in on narration and storytelling devices in music without playing movie music? But one of the cool things, because again, I don't need to do anything as a teacher to make kids excited about this because they've all seen the movie, and I think most of them, if not all of them, like love or at least mostly enjoy the music from that. But we had a really great moment last week because I asked both groups. This is the band on stage actually is 2 different classes. They rehearse separately, and I asked them the question, so what is this about? And they all looked at me like, are you kidding me? Like, what is it about? It's about, like this kid and dragons and, like Burke, and they don't like dragons, and then the kid like traps one, and like, I said, no, I know the story, but what is it about? Which launched into this great discussion about metaphor and all of these things, and they really know that stuff too. There was one percussionist, and I won't say his name, but one percussionist who and Colin was like, wait a second, hold on. Colin was wait a second, is this like a metaphor for like generational trauma? Like, it got deep really, really fast, and I think the percussionist that I definitely did not name was like almost scared at how like it's not just a cartoon. The dragon is a metaphor. So that was really cool. You all know the music. Enjoy. This is How to Train Your Dragon. Every piece has a story. Every person has a story. Gershar has a story. Gershar, how many math classes are you in? How many math classes? He takes 2 math classes, ladies and gentlemen. What are they? Calc AB, and if that's not enough, Calc BC. And yet that solo was so important to Gershar that what class did you miss to work on that? Calc. Now, he had permission by Mr. Swanson. Thank you, Mr. Swanson. So that's all super good. So that's a piece called Havanna Nights. It's super fun to play. We worked on that throughout the month of May, and AP testing also happens in May. And there's one thing that I want to point out to you. There are so many great musicians on stage, but if I talked about that, it would not be the whole story for these students. Because many of these students, most of these students are juniors and seniors, a few sophomores. I think there's a freshman, I think. She doesn't act like a freshman. Raise your hand if you took an AP test, 1 or more. No. Leave your hand up if you took 2. How about 3? 4? 5. Keep your hand up if you took 5 AP tests. Do I get a 6? How about 7? Okay. This group has been incredibly busy with a lot of things. Forensics, our forensics team, which has a couple of band members, was also doing nationals just this past weekend. Tons of stuff going on, and so I'm proud of them for the work that they did throughout the month of May, because it's tough to keep all of that stuff going. We're going to continue with a piece that we've actually been dabbling with all year. I think they were disappointed when we didn't get a chance to play it earlier in the year, so we said, what the heck, let's play it on this concert. This is a piece by a Japanese composer called March-Bou-Shu. It's a beautiful song. It's a beautiful story. That comes from the Odyssey, and Frankie, I think, is like the resident expert on this. And the story that the music tells, I think, is a little bit different than maybe some of the interpretations of the book. But basically, Odysseus he's lost at sea, and a woman nurtures him back to health. He lost his memory, and he goes on and he has a life with her. And then one day, his memory comes back, and he's like, "Hey, like I know who I am. I know where I have to go. I have a family. I need to leave." And she says, "I get it." The entire time, that they had a life together, she was making a tapestry, just to tell their story. And so that night, as the story goes, she takes apart the tapestry thread by thread and makes him a sail so that he can sail back to his family. So it's heart-wrenching, and there's definitely ache in that, but it's also just a really, really cool story, and I think the way John Mackey brings that to life, he's willing to go as a composer to places that I think that really draw out just really, really important human feelings and human anguish. We're going to bring our seniors up in a moment. We're going to play one final tune as a wind ensemble, and then we will bring our senior class up. And so I just want to give everyone fair warning. This is not quite our last tune. But I do want to recognize, every year we give out a John Philip Sousa Award. This is a national award that is awarded to one senior at each high school across the country. This is an award that is selected by students. Students vote on this award, and the criteria is obviously outstanding musicianship, but also leadership, all of those great things as well. And so it's been customary for me to not only ask students to vote, but also ask students to just provide a little bit of a rationale, or say something about who they're voting for. And I like to read some of those comments here as well. So the first comment, the student writes, "I actually don't think I've ever seen them outside the band room." Now, that's a lie. I know that they are outside the band room, which just backs up the fact that they're one of the most dedicated people I've ever met. They inspire everyone in band to play music with heart and have fun. Another one said, "Every single time I walk into the band room and he is there, I feel like I'm ascending into a higher form of existence." The next comment, "He's helped me so much throughout the school year with jazz, and he doesn't just help a group, he actually helps the entire community." And then the last comment that students shared, "You can always hear him practicing, especially guitar. And it's clear that he loves what he does." I'm very proud to recognize August Nelson as this year's John Philip Sousa Award. Before we bring seniors up, this is, and Wind Ensemble, we didn't really talk about this, like our one and only day yesterday. When we're done playing, we're just going to step off to the wings here, just off to the sides. Seniors will occupy the first two rows, okay? Our last tune is a piece called Spirited Away. Any of you know the movie? Okay. I think I might be accurate in saying that this is almost like it has a cult-like following with it. It's a Japanese anime movie, has incredible music. We're going to play the soundtrack from Spirited Away. If you don't know the music, check it out. If you don't know the name Joe Hisashi, check him out. In America, we have John Williams. I think in Japan, they have Joe Hisashi. He is kind of like their John Williams, and his music is awesome. So this is Joe Hisashi's Spirited Away.
Good evening. For those of you who have been to one of our final spring concerts before, you might know what's about to happen. But if you don't, the purpose of this next portion of the concert is, of course, to recognize the seniors of the band program. But in past years, us seniors have also used it as an opportunity to thank the best band director we could have ever asked for, Mr. McVeigh. Mr. McVeigh has consistently been a positive presence in the lives of countless students. He has not only pushed students out of their comfort zone to try new things, but has also then made those new spaces equally as comfortable through support, encouragement, and sometimes really bad jokes. So with that said, us seniors came together to make a gift for Mr. McVeigh to thank him for everything that he's done.
Thank you. Like, seriously, all of you, thank you. Those really are special to me, and I love the pictures are already very bad. They seem to find me in, like, they'll ask me to, like, hold, like, a fairy baton. And then, like, it just, okay. But I need to make something very, very clear. Their lack of a sense of humor does not mean my jokes are bad, okay? Thank you to the one person that clapped in the back. It may have been my dad or my wife. This is a very special senior class because, and I had said at the banquet earlier today, this is a class that opened this school as freshmen. It is the first class that we have in Sun Prairie that never really was a Cardinal, unless you count Cardinal Heights. But their entire high school existence was in this building. And so that, I think, is a really, really important arc that we as a community just kind of also take notice to. And we've done that at the same time as having really, really strong relationships with the East program as well. We don't see ourselves having an East program and a West program. We see ourselves having a Sun Prairie Band program. We just simply exist in two buildings and still come together fairly regularly. This is also a class that I'm not going to lie, you're going to notice that they're like, wait a second, there's not a ton of seniors in the. That's correct. That is correct. They started their instruments, and then, 2/3 of the way through their first year on their instruments, COVID. And then the next year was all virtual. And these students behind me are students that stuck it out. And I think that's really cool. Not all of them are students that well, go ahead. Because those times weren't fun, and it was hard to make music on the computer. That's not the way this is designed to work. This is designed to work as human beings with each other, and not over the Zooms and all that stuff. The other thing that I want to say too that I think sets this class apart in a really, really exceptional way is that there's a higher concentration of students that started in band, stopped, I get it, and then came back to band. And I think that's really, really cool too. And in many times on a different instrument, which I think is just kind of neat. And a part of their story that I think is significant. If you look at tonight's program, you will also see bios of each of these students, including a picture. And I had asked parents to try to come up with the closest picture that they could from when their child started playing their instrument. So there's some really, really, really cute pictures. So if you have not scanned the QR code, please do that now and check it out on the program. This is a very traditional tune that we have ended our years with in Sun Prairie. This is an arrangement of The Water is Wide by our class of 2026 seniors.